Today I'm going to be taking a look at the Y5 Retro TV GameStick. We've been seeing more and more things like this pop up, and I'm really glad there's a market for them because I actually think they're pretty cool. I've reviewed a couple in the past, and the performance has been pretty hit or miss. I have the 128GB version, which claims to have 51,000 games, but they also sell a 64GB version that has 45,000 games. But how well will the Y5 GameStick perform? Let's find out. Inside the box, you have the GameStick itself. You have two wireless gamepads along with a dongle, a micro USB cable for powering the unit, and an HDMI extender, which is always appreciated. The controllers that come with this thing are pretty much the exact controllers that come with almost all of these GameSticks. I don't know what it is about these controllers and why this is the preferred gamepad to bundle with these things, but they're serviceable at best. You're not getting anything special. The D-pad and face buttons are surprisingly decent, but the analog sticks are trash, and the shoulder buttons feel like you're typing on a keyboard that was made in the 1980s. Very loud, very clicky, and oftentimes they'll stick when pressed hard enough. They're not Bluetooth. The dongle needs to be plugged into the GameStick, which isn't a big deal. But one thing I'm sick of seeing are these things require batteries. They need two AAA batteries each, and there's not even an option to use it wired. But with this thing being under 40 bucks for the 64GB version, the quality of the gamepads can be forgiven if the GameStick itself gives solid performance. Taking a closer look at the GameStick itself, over on the front you have a USB port to plug in the dongle for the gamepads. Over on the side you have the micro USB port and the SD card slot, where the entire operating system resides. I was having a hard time finding actual specs on the thing, but this is what I was able to dig up. It seems to be running a version of emulators, and spec-wise it doesn't seem too bad for the price. It claims to support over 40 different emulators, but I think that might be a slight exaggeration. Powering this thing on, we're greeted to an interesting opening animation, and it takes us directly to the main menu, which is very reminiscent of a Pandora's box style. Right from the jump, I have to say I was extremely impressed with its selection of games. It has a really solid library of PSP, Sega Dreamcast, Nintendo 64, and even some more obscure emulators like Virtual Boy and Pokemon Mini. I spent quite a bit of time just navigating this menu, really surprised at the selection. If even half of these games run decent, this thing is worth the price. Starting with PSP performance, I was a bit on the fence. While playing certain games like God of War, you can tell that the emulation was modified, or hell, even the ROM might have been modified itself so that it can run better. The sky was completely blackened and there were these black boxes around certain items on the screen. It's not the most ideal way to play this game. But then, on the flip side, you go and play a game like Vice City Stories, and it runs flawless. Everything from the cutscenes, the audio, and gameplay all ran beautifully. And then I ran another game, I ran Ridge Racer, and it was the same thing. It ran perfect. So PSP performance is really a game-by-game basis. Sega Dreamcast ran damn near perfect. Every game I played looked really good, sound great, and performed really well. This GameStick is essentially a micro Dreamcast. It's got a really solid library. If you're looking for a cheap way to replay some of your favorite Dreamcast games, this might actually be the perfect thing. I stood stuck on Dreamcast for a while because I was just trying to find something that didn't perform well. I needed something to complain about, but I was very impressed at how it handled Dreamcast games. I started dabbling with its Sega Naomi emulator, which essentially is the line of arcade games that were built on Dreamcast architecture. Another emulator I was actually really surprised to see on here was Nintendo DS. And it did not disappoint in this department either. The DS games all ran really good, and switching the orientation of the two screens was as simple as pressing one of the shoulder buttons, which I felt was really badass for a game like Contra 4, being able to take up the whole screen like that. Its library of DS games was solid also. You'll find everything from your Marios to your Pokemons. I have to say, I'm actually really liking this thing. I spent a little bit of time playing its N64 emulator. It's got a solid library and everything I played pretty much ran good. And then I spent the rest of my time playing some of the more obscure emulators. I played a little bit of Vectrex, some Pokemon Mini, and some Virtual Boy. So the Y5 GameStick, I have to say, I am super impressed. I was not expecting this. It was a very pleasant surprise. The only negative I was able to find is some of the PSP games are hit and miss, the controllers are ass, and the packaging is kind of ugly. It ain't the prettiest thing to look at, but damn, you are getting a great value. If you're looking for something to primarily play PSP games, you might find some better alternatives out there. But from Dreamcast and down, you'd be hard pressed to find a better deal than this. I'm gonna go so far as to say this is probably the best performing game stick I've used to date. I mean, we're seeing these things flood the market, so that's probably not gonna be the case within the next few months. But as of right now, you're getting a ton of value for a really low price point. If you're looking for something that's really good at emulating Dreamcast, if you're looking for some way to play some 3DS games on the big screen without breaking the bank, this thing might be worth taking a look at. If you guys are interested in the Y5 GameStick, I'll put links in the description below. Until next time, this is Ness, signing out.